Do you feel that prickle on the back of your neck? Will the lights go out? Hear whispers that vanish when you try to listen? Welcome to Ghost Stories USA, your flickering candle in the oppressive darkness of the unexplained. Here, we gather round the digital campfire to share chilling tales that linger long after the screen goes dark. Join us as we delve into the heart of fear, exploring terrifying hauntings, creepy urban legends, unsettling personal encounters, and mysteries that defy rational explanations. From phantom footsteps in empty hallways to spectral figures glimpsed in peripheral vision, we unearth the stories that whisper from the shadows. This channel is for those who find comfort in the cold dread, who seek thrills in the twilight hours, and who dare to question what lies beyond the veil. Prepare for sleepless nights and newfound caution in the dark. If you're ready to face the fear, hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you never miss a new nightmare. Now turn down the lights, if you dare. Let the haunting begin.
Part 2. The whispers in the asylum. The spring semester at UConn was a blur for Sarah. She couldn't focus on her classes, her mind constantly returning to Emily Carter and Route 169. She spent hours in the library, poring over old newspapers and local history books, trying to find any mention of the car accident or Emily's life. But the more she dug, the more elusive the truth seemed to become. Emily, on the other hand, tried to move on. She dismissed the experience as a bizarre coincidence, a product of small-town folklore and late-night paranoia. She urged Sarah to do the same. But Sarah was obsessed. One rainy afternoon, while sifting through microfilm archives at the university library, Sarah stumbled upon a small article in a local newspaper from 1967. It wasn't about the car accident, but it mentioned Emily Carter in connection with the Norwich State Hospital, an infamous mental asylum located a few towns over from Woodstock. The article described Emily as a volunteer patient assistant at the hospital, working with children with developmental disabilities. The article was short and innocuous, but something about it caught Sarah's attention. Why would Emily, a young woman from a small town, be working at a mental asylum? And why hadn't anyone mentioned this before? That night, Sarah called Emily, her voice trembling with excitement. "I found something," she said, "about Emily Carter. She used to work at Norwich State Hospital." Emily was silent for a moment. "Norwich State? That place is creepy. I heard it's haunted." "I know," Sarah said. "But this could be it, Emily. This could be the key to understanding what happened to her." Despite her initial reluctance, Emily agreed to go with Sarah to Norwich the following weekend. They had both heard the stories about the asylum. Abandoned since the mid-1990s due to changing mental health practices and allegations of abuse, Norwich State was a sprawling complex of decaying buildings, rumored to be haunted by the ghosts of former patients. As they drove towards Norwich, the landscape changed. The rolling hills and picturesque farms of Woodstock gave way to dense forests and overgrown fields. The air grew heavy, charged with an unspoken sense of dread. The asylum loomed in the distance, a collection of imposing brick buildings, their windows like empty eyes staring out at the world. A chain-link fence surrounded the property, topped with rusty barbed wire. No trespassing signs were posted everywhere, but they were faded and ignored. "This is insane," Emily said, her voice barely above a whisper. "We shouldn't be here." "We're already here," Sarah said, her eyes fixed on the asylum. "Let's just see what we can find." They found a break in the fence and slipped through, their hearts pounding in their chests. The grounds were eerily silent, the only sound the rustling of leaves in the wind. They walked towards the main building, its entrance a gaping maw of darkness. The air inside the building was cold and damp, thick with the smell of mildew and decay. Graffiti covered the walls, scrawled messages of madness and despair. The floors were littered with broken glass, medical records, and the remnants of forgotten lives. "This place is giving me the creeps," Emily said, her hand gripping Sarah's arm. "Let's just look around for a bit and then get out of here." They wandered through the labyrinthine corridors, peering into empty rooms, trying to imagine what life had been like for the patients who had lived there. They saw padded cells, therapy rooms, and wards filled with rows of empty beds. In one of the rooms, they found a stack of old medical records. Sarah picked one up and opened it. It was the file of a young woman named Mary, diagnosed with schizophrenia in 1952. The file detailed her treatments, her delusions, and her gradual decline into madness. As Sarah read, she felt a deep sense of sadness and outrage. The treatments described in the file were barbaric: electroshock therapy, lobotomies, and heavy doses of medication. It was clear that Mary had been more of a prisoner than a patient. Suddenly, they heard a noise, a faint whisper coming from down the hall. "Did you hear that?" Emily asked, her eyes wide with fear. "It's probably just the wind," Sarah said, trying to sound reassuring. They continued walking, the whispers growing louder. They seemed to be coming from one of the rooms at the end of the hall. They reached the room and peered inside. It was a small, bare room with a single window. The window was broken, and the wind was whistling through the cracks. As they stepped into the room, the whispers intensified. They seemed to be all around them, voices murmuring unintelligible words. "I don't like this," Emily said, her voice shaking. "Let's get out of here." But Sarah was frozen, her eyes fixed on something in the corner of the room. It was a name, scratched into the wall with what looked like a fingernail. "Emily Carter," it read. Sarah gasped. "It's her," she said. "She was here." As soon as she said the words, the whispers turned into screams. The temperature in the room dropped, and a cold wind swept through the room. Sarah and Emily felt a presence, a dark and malevolent energy. "We have to go," Sarah said, grabbing Emily's hand. Now, they ran out of the room, the screams chasing them down the hall. They didn't stop running until they were outside the asylum, back in the fresh air. They sat on the hood of Sarah's car, catching their breath, trying to process what they had just experienced. "What was that?" Emily asked, her voice trembling. "I don't know," Sarah said, "but I think we just found out why Emily Carter was so troubled." They knew they couldn't leave it there. Something about the asylum, about Emily Carter's connection to it, felt crucial to unraveling the mystery of Route 169. Over the next few weeks, Sarah and Emily dedicated themselves to researching Norwich State Hospital, diving deep into its dark history. They learned about the horrific conditions, the experimental treatments, and the countless patients who had been forgotten within its walls. They discovered records of patient mistreatment, abuse, and even unexplained deaths. The more they learned, the more convinced they became that Emily Carter's time at the asylum had somehow led to her tragic fate. One day, while searching through old hospital archives online, Sarah found a reference to a Dr. Silas Blackwood, a prominent psychiatrist who had worked at Norwich State in the 1960s. Blackwood was known for his unconventional methods and his fascination with the occult. He believed that mental illness was caused by demonic possession and that he could cure his patients through ritualistic exorcisms. Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. Could Dr. Blackwood have been involved in Emily Carter's death? Could he have driven her to madness? They found Blackwood's former residence listed in an old alumni directory. It was located in a secluded area of Norwich, not far from the asylum. Driven by a desperate need for answers, Sarah and Emily decided to visit Blackwood's house. The house was abandoned and dilapidated, its windows boarded up, its paint peeling. The yard was overgrown with weeds, and the air was thick with the stench of decay. They cautiously approached the front door and tried to open it, but it was locked. Sarah found a loose window in the back of the house and managed to pry it open. They climbed inside, their hearts pounding in their chests. The house was dark and dusty, filled with cobwebs and the musty smell of old books. They explored the house, room by room, finding remnants of Blackwood's life. They saw his study, filled with books on psychiatry, demonology, and ancient rituals. They found his bedroom, with its empty bed and a strange symbol painted on the wall above the headboard that I in the basement. They found a hidden room. The room was small and windowless, its walls covered in strange symbols and arcane diagrams. In the center of the room was a stone altar, stained with what looked like blood. Sarah and Emily felt a wave of nausea wash over them. This was it, they realized. This was where Blackwood had performed his dark rituals they were about to leave. Sarah noticed something tucked away in a corner of the room. It was a small, leather-bound journal. She picked it up and opened it. The pages were filled with Blackwood's handwriting, detailing his experiments, his beliefs, and his obsession with Emily Carter. As Sarah read, she learned the horrifying truth. Blackwood had become obsessed with Emily, convinced that she possessed a unique psychic ability. He believed that he could harness her power to open a gateway to another dimension. He had subjected her to a series of brutal experiments, trying to break her mind and control her spirit. He had driven her to the brink of madness, until finally, she had snapped out on June 14, 1967. Emily had escaped from the asylum and run into the woods. Blackwood had pursued her, determined to bring her back. According to the journal, Emily had stumbled onto Route 169, where she was struck by a car and killed. Blackwood had covered up the accident, burying her body in an unmarked grave and concealing his involvement. Sarah closed the journal, her hands shaking. They knew the truth now. They knew what had happened to Emily Carter, but they also knew that Blackwood's spirit was still lingering, trapped between worlds, waiting to unleash his evil upon the unsuspecting. As they turned to leave the hidden room, they heard a voice. A raspy, chilling voice coming from the shadows. "You shouldn't have come here," the voice said. "You shouldn't have uncovered my secrets." Sarah and Emily turned around and saw a figure standing in the doorway. It was a tall, gaunt man, his eyes burning with an unholy light. It was Dr. Silas Blackwood, or, at least, what was left of him. The final confrontation within the decaying Blackwood house was swift and terrifying. Blackwood, fueled by decades of trapped malevolence, unleashed a torrent of psychic energy. Objects flew across the room, the air crackled with static, and Sarah and Emily were bombarded with horrifying visions of Blackwood's experiments and Emily Carter's suffering. Emily, drawing on a strength she didn't know she possessed, remembered a protection ritual her grandmother had taught her, a simple prayer and a series of hand gestures meant to ward off evil. As she performed the ritual, a wave of light emanated from her, pushing back against Blackwood's darkness. Sarah, meanwhile, grabbed a heavy, antique silver candlestick and charged at Blackwood, striking him with all her might. The candlestick connected with his head, and Blackwood screamed, a sound that seemed to tear through the very fabric of reality. His form flickered, then dissipated into nothingness, leaving behind only a lingering sense of dread. With Blackwood's spirit finally vanquished, a sense of peace settled over the house. Sarah and Emily left the house, never to return. They went back to Emily Carter's grave and placed a bouquet of white roses on her headstone. They told her story to anyone who would listen, ensuring that she would never be forgotten. The legend of the vanishing hitchhiker of Route 169 slowly faded over time, replaced by new stories and new fears. But for Sarah and Emily, the memory of their encounter with Emily Carter and Dr. Silas Blackwood remained, a constant reminder of the dark secrets that lie hidden beneath the surface of the ordinary world. They learned that some stories are more than just legends. They are echoes of the past, waiting to be awakened by those who dare to listen. And they knew, with a certainty that chilled them to the bone, that Route 169 and the ruins of Norwich State Hospital held countless more secrets, waiting to be unearthed. Their adventure had ended, but the mysteries of the haunted Connecticut landscape remained, forever beckoning to those brave enough to seek them out. Did you learn any lessons from this story? If so, please leave your feedback in the comments below. Thank you, and we hope to see you in the admin's future videos. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. We sincerely thank you and look forward to seeing you again.